Victoria Harrington's piercing gaze froze Marcus in the crowded boardroom. "Marcus Reed, you're fired effective immediately. Harrington Global has no room for your kind of deviance," she announced with disdain, her words landing like physical blows. The room erupted in whispers as Marcus stood there, his heart-pounding face burning with humiliation. Just minutes earlier, he had been presenting the quarter's stellar results, the golden boy of the company at 28 VP of Strategic Development. Now, because someone had leaked that he was gay, that he had a partner named Andre, everything was gone. No severance mentioned, just security escorting him out as if he was a criminal. He gathered his things in a blur, colleagues avoiding his eyes, some with pity, others with judgment. The elevator ride down felt eternal, each floor a reminder of the years he poured into the company, sacrificing personal life to climb the ladder. How naive to think merit would protect him from prejudice at the top. The drive home to their apartment in Brooklyn was a nightmare of traffic and self-doubt. How could this happen in 21st century America? But Victoria was old school, her empire built on traditional values. She preached in interviews, though her own string of high-profile divorces and cutthroat takeovers painted her as a hypocrite. Marcus gripped the steering while tears stinging his eyes. Fired for being who he was. The ultimate betrayal by the system he believed in. When he opened the door, Andre was there, his tall, artistic frame in the kitchen, cooking their favorite pasta dish. "Babe, you're early." "How did the presentation go?" Andre turned, his warm smile fading instantly as he saw Marcus' ashen face and slumped shoulders. "They fired me, Andre. Victoria found out about us. She said my lifestyle is bad for the image of Harrington Global." Marcus' voice broke as he collapsed into Andre's strong arms, the dam of emotions breaking. Andre held him tight, one hand stroking his back, the other cradling his head. "Oh God, Marcus. I'm so sorry. We'll get through this together. You're the most talented man I know. This is her loss, not yours." They moved to the couch, Marcus recounting the humiliating scene in detail, the shocked faces of the board, the way Victoria's lips curled in disgust. Andre listened without interruption, his own anger simmering. As an architect at a progressive firm, Andre had faced subtle biases, but nothing like this public execution. "She's a dinosaur. Her empire will crumble one day, and we'll be there to see it." But inside Marcus, a storm raged. Shame washed over him, shame for having to hide his relationship for so long at work, for the late nights where he couldn't share about Andre and water cooler talks. Anger at the unfairness. Fear for their financial future, the mortgage, the dreams of adopting a child someday. His conservative family in Texas will be devastated. His father, a retired military man, had only grudgingly accepted his sexuality after years of strained calls. "This will kill them," Marcus muttered. That night as they lay in bed, the city lights filtering through the curtains, Marcus stared at the ceiling, Andre's arm draped protectively over him. "I won't let her destroy me, Andre. He'll build something bigger, something that makes her regret this day." Andre kissed his forehead tenderly. "Just promise me you won't lose yourself in the anger. Revenge can eat you alive." Marcus nodded, but the seed was planted. The next weeks were a descent into uncertainty. Job applications went unanswered or rejected. Once potential employers checked references from Harrington, where whispers of not a good fit culturally circulated. The social fallout was swift. Some friends distanced themselves, afraid of association with the scandal that made local business news. Marcus' phone rang one evening. It was his mother. "Son, we saw something online. Is it true they let you go because of that?" Her voice was hesitant, laced with the same disappointment he had heard when he came out at 21. "Your father says maybe it's a sign to rethink your choices. We love you, but this lifestyle." The call ended with Marcus feeling gutted, the family pressure compounding the professional rejection. Society's prejudices weren't abstract, they were personal, cutting deep into his sense of self-worth. Yet in Andre's unwavering support, Marcus found a lifeline. One sunny afternoon, they walked hand in hand in Central Park, defying the world. "This is who we are," Andre said, squeezing his hand. "And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's love, pure and simple." Marcus smiled faintly for the first time in days, but the fire of determination burned brighter. He used his savings to start a small boutique consulting firm focused on sustainable development, a niche Victoria ignored. The first client came after weeks of cold calling and networking in LGBTQ professional groups where he found solidarity. Landing that contract was a small victory they celebrated with cheap wine on their tiny balcony. To new beginnings, Andre toasted. But Marcus knew this was the start of a long, grueling war. Victoria's dismissive words echoed in his mind every night, fueling late-work sessions. The relationship with Andre began to show cracks under the strain missed dinners, Marcus' distraction. Would his quest for redemption cost him the one person who truly saw him? The internal battle between love and ambition had just begun. The days blurred into a cycle of rejection and small hopes. Marcus spent hours refining his pitch deck for Phoenix Innovations, the name he chose to symbolize his rebirth from the ashes Victoria created. Andre took extra design gigs to cover the rent his own projects pushed aside without complaint. One evening as they reviewed bank statements, the numbers stared back mercilessly. "We have 3 months tops," Marcus said, his voice tight. Andre reached across the table. "Then we make every day count. No more hiding, no more apologies." Their decision to move forward together strengthened a bond, but Marcus could not shake the moral question gnawing at him. Should he use the insider knowledge he gained at Harrington to undercut her in bids or stay clean and risk failure? The dilemma kept him awake, the choice between ethics and survival weighing heavy. By the end of the month, they had their first paying client, a small nonprofit seeking AI tools for community outreach. The wind felt hollow against a mountain ahead, but it was a step. Marcus vowed silently that 7 years from now, Victoria would feel the same humiliation he did today. The price of that vow was already climbing, but in that moment with Andre by his side, it seemed worth every sacrifice. The following morning brought the harsh reality of unemployment as Marcus woke to the smell of fresh coffee. Andre preparing breakfast in their Brooklyn kitchen, the clink of plates a small comfort in a modest apartment they had called home for 3 years. "Good morning, love. I made your favorite," Andre said, his voice gentle, but his eyes showed the worry he tried to hide. They sat down and Marcus outlined his plan to start Phoenix Innovations, a startup that would not only innovate in ethical AI, but create a workplace free from the biases he had endured. Andre nodded. "Him behind you 100%. Well, make it work." But as they discussed finances, the numbers did not lie. Their savings would last 6 months at most if they cut every non-essential expense. Marcus spent the day sending out resumes only to receive automated rejections. One hiring manager even called saying, "Your work at Harrington is impressive, but we heard about the circumstances of your departure. We're looking for a different cultural fit." The prejudice stung again. In the afternoon, Marcus visited his lawyer to explore a discrimination lawsuit, but the advice was bleak. At-will employment makes it tough to prove, and Victoria's team will fight dirty. Deciding against it to save money, Marcus felt the first pangs of defeat. That evening, the call from his father came. "Son, your mother told me. This is a wake-up call. Come home, get straight, and we'll help you start over." The rejection from family hurt more than the firing. Marcus argued, defending his love for Andre, but the line went dead. Andre comforted him. "They don't understand yet. Our love is our strength." They spent the night planning the business launch, Marcus deciding to use his knowledge ethically, but wondering if bending rules would be necessary for survival. The moral dilemma began. Would he use confidential insights from Harrington to gain an edge? The decision loomed, weighing on his conscience. By the end of the week, they had a basic website up, and Marcus secured a small freelance gig from an LGBTQ business network. It was a start, but the path ahead was filled with uncertainty and the growing resolve to prove Victoria wrong. The weeks turned into a grind of networking events where Marcus pitched Phoenix Innovations to anyone who would listen. Some investors listened politely, then backed away when they learned his story. Others were openly skeptical about a gay founder in a male-dominated field. One potential backer, a conservative venture capitalist from the Midwest, outright asked if Marcus' lifestyle would affect team dynamics. Marcus bit his tongue, swallowing the rage, and walked away knowing another rejection. At home, Andre tried to lift his spirits with small gestures like planning a low-cost date night in the park, but the tension was palpable. Marcus began to question his choices. Was his openness worth this struggle? Would staying hidden have kept his job and spared them this pain? Andre sensed the doubt and confronted him one night. "You can't let them win by making you doubt who you are. We chose this life together because it's real." Their argument was heated but ended in tears and reaffirmation of their love. Meanwhile, family pressure mounted. Marcus' sister texted supportive messages in secret, but the family rift was widening. Andre's parents were more open, sending care packages and encouraging words, but they lived in California far away and couldn't offer financial help. A turning point came when Marcus landed a modest contract with community organization seeking custom software. The project was small, but it brought in enough to keep them afloat for another month. With renewed hope, they filed a paperwork for Phoenix Innovations Incorporating as a Delaware company to attract future funding. The day they received the official documents, Marcus and Andre celebrated with a bottle of cheap wine on their rooftop. For a moment, the world felt right. But deep down, Marcus knew the road would be long and the price high. He vowed to himself that one day Victoria would see the empire he built from the ashes she created. The internal conflict raged on. Was revenge a poison or fuel? As months turned to the first year, Marcus' drive intensified. He worked 18-hour days networking at every event, attending conferences where he pitched his vision. Some doors opened, others closed due to the industry grapevine. Andre supported by taking a full-time job at a design firm, sacrificing his own dreams of freelance artistry. The sacrifice weighed on Marcus. He saw the toll on Andre's health, the late nights, the missed weekends. Yet when he suggested Andre step back, the response was firm. "We're in this together. No turning back." By the end of the year, they had their first small investor, a tech angel, who believed in the inclusive mission. It was a modest sum, but it validated their path. Marcus felt the first taste of empowerment, the prejudice that tried to break him now fueling his ambition. Yet in quiet moments, the doubt lingered, the moral question of how far he would go to succeed. The journey had just begun, and the costs were already stacking up. The first year closed with a small office lease and a shared workspace, and 2 employees hired from the same networks that had given Marcus hope. The team bonded over shared stories of discrimination, and the mission felt alive. But as the company grew, so did the pressure on Marcus to deliver results or lose everything. Andre noticed the late nights and the way Marcus checked industry news obsessively for any mention of Victoria. "You're becoming obsessed, babe. Remember why we started this?" Marcus nodded, but the fire inside him burned hotter. The betrayal that started it all still demanded justice, and the price of waiting was one he was willing to pay, even if it meant sacrificing sleep, peace, and pieces of the life he once knew with Andre. By the second year, Phoenix Innovations had its first major client, a mid-sized nonprofit that needed an AI platform for equitable resource distribution. The contract was a breakthrough, landing them in local tech publications as the underdog story of the year. Marcus felt a rush of validation as he signed the deal, his hands steady for the first time since the firing. Andre celebrated with him at a quiet dinner, their first real night out in months. To us, Andre toasted, his eyes shining with pride. But success brought new challenges. A former colleague from Harrington, David, approached Marcus at an industry mixer, offering inside information on Victoria's upcoming projects in exchange for a cut of future profits. The temptation was real. Using that data could accelerate their growth tenfold. Marcus lay awake that night wrestling with the ethics. Was it justice or just becoming like her? He turned David down, the decision costing him a sleepless week of doubt. The betrayal came anyway when David leaked their pitch details to Harrington, causing a key investor to pull out at the last minute. The setback nearly sank them. Cash flow dried up, and Marcus had to lay off 1 employee, the guilt eating at him. Andre held him through the tears. "You did the right thing. That's what makes us different." Family pressure resurfaced when Marcus' mother visited unannounced, hoping to talk sense into him. She hugged Andre politely, but the dinner conversation turned to old arguments about lifestyle choices and family legacy. Marcus stood his ground, but the visit left scars, reopening wounds of rejection. The company survived on sheer grit, Marcus working triple shifts to rebuild client trust. By year's end, they had recovered, securing 2 more contracts, but the relational strain showed. Andre started talking about marriage, a step they had discussed before the firing. Marcus hesitated, citing the instability. The argument that followed left Andre sleeping on the couch. Marcus reflected alone in the office, the moral cost of his drive clear. He had chosen integrity over shortcut, but at what price to the man he loved? The internal conflict deepened as he realized revenge was no longer abstract, it was reshaping him. Yet the spark of defiance remained stronger than ever, pushing him forward into year 3 with a harder resolve and a heavier heart. Year 3 brought steady growth as Phoenix Innovations expanded into enterprise software with a focus on inclusive design. Marcus hired 3 more staff, creating a diverse team that reflected the values he fought for. Revenue tripled, and they moved to a proper office in Manhattan, the view a far cry from the Brooklyn couch where it all started. Andre was proud, attending the ribbon, cutting his arm around Marcus in public for the first time without hesitation. But the obsession with Victoria grew. Marcus tracked her every move, reading quarterly reports and attending events where she spoke. At one conference, their paths crossed. Victoria barely glanced at him, dismissing his company as a fad. The encounter fueled Marcus late into the night, planning his next moves. The relationship with Andre suffered. Andre wanted stability, a home, a wedding, but Marcus delayed everything for the business. One night, Andre gave an ultimatum. "I love you, but I won't watch you become her." The fight was raw, tears and raised voices. Marcus apologized, promising balance, but the words felt hollow even to him. A family reconciliation attempt came when his sister visited with her father. The meeting was tense, the father offering conditional support if Marcus toned down his lifestyle. Marcus refused the decision, costing him the last thread of family connection. The betrayal from within came when a trusted employee leaked project details to a competitor linked to Harrington. The loss was financial and emotional. Marcus fired the employee, but the incident forced a hard look at trust. He chose transparency, with the team sharing his story to build loyalty. The move worked, strengthening the culture, but the personal toll mounted. Andre moved into a separate room for a week, the distance a painful reminder of the price Marcus was paying. By the end of the year, the company was profitable enough for expansion plans, but Marcus knew the real battle was still ahead. The moral dilemmas accumulated, each decision chipping away at his original self. Was the success worth the man he was becoming? The question haunted him as he lay awake next to the empty side of the bed. The midpoint years 4 and 5 marked the turning point as Phoenix Innovations acquired its first competitor, a small firm with complementary technology. The deal made headlines in tech circles, positioning Marcus as a rising force. Investors poured in, and the valuation soared. Marcus felt the power shifting, the tables turning slowly. At a major industry gala, he faced Victoria again, this time on equal footing. She sneered at his success, calling it luck. The confrontation left Marcus exhilarated and shaken. Back home, Andre confronted him again. "This revenge is consuming you. We barely see each other." Marcus promised change, but the pull was stronger. Family pressure peaked when his father had a health scare. Marcus flew to Texas, the reunion awkward. His father admitted partial regret, but still could not fully accept. The visit ended without closure, leaving Marcus more isolated. A moral crisis hit when a shady deal offered insider data on Harrington's weaknesses. Marcus rejected it, the decision costing a potential $1 million in revenue, but preserving his soul. Andre praised him, the first real reconnection in months. They renewed their commitment with a small ceremony, just the two of them on a quiet beach. The moment was tender, but Marcus knew the obsession lingered. The company continued its ascent, acquiring more assets and building a reputation for ethical innovation. Societal prejudice persisted in subtle ways, investors questioning team dynamics, but Marcus used it as fuel, turning every slight into motivation. The internal awakening began here, the realization that victory might cost more than he bargained for. By year 5, the foundation was set for the final assault, the 7-year mark approaching like a storm on the horizon. Years 5 and 6 saw Phoenix Innovations rival Harrington in key markets. Major acquisitions followed, Marcus orchestrating hostile bids with precision. The media dubbed him the comeback kid, his story of discrimination fueling public support. Andre stood by him, attending galas and meetings, but the strain showed in quiet moments. One evening after a successful deal, Andre said, "I'm proud, but I miss the man I fell in love with." Marcus heard the words, but the drive pushed him onward. A direct confrontation came at an annual summit. Victoria cornered him in a hallway, her voice low. "You think this makes you better? You're just like me now." The words hit hard, forcing Marcus to question his path. Back home, the argument with Andre escalated. "If you buy her out, what then? Will it be enough, or will it destroy us?" Marcus chose the company again, the decision a turning point. Betrayals mounted when a board member leaked plans to Harrington, causing a temporary stock dip. Marcus handled it ruthlessly, firing the traitor, but the act left him hollow. Family reached out one last time, his mother begging for reconciliation. He declined the choice, severing the final tie. The moral gray areas multiplied, each ruthless negotiation a step further from the idealistic man who started Phoenix. Yet the empire grew, the pieces aligning for the ultimate move. As year 7 dawned, Marcus stood at the precipice, the buyout plan in motion, the cost to his soul and his love with Andre, now impossible to ignore. The 7th year culminated in a hostile takeover battle that shook the industry. Phoenix Innovations launched the bid with meticulous preparation, lawyers, media teams, and shareholders aligned. Victoria fought back viciously, public statements calling Marcus ungrateful and unstable. The media frenzy exposed her prejudices, reigniting old scandals. Boardroom meetings turned into verbal wars, Marcus facing her across the table, the tension electric. "You destroyed me," once he said quietly. "Now it's my turn." Victoria laughed bitterly, her empire crumbling around her. The legal fights dragged on, months of depositions and countersuits draining both sides. Andre watched from the sidelines, his ultimatums ignored. One night he packed a bag. "I can't watch this anymore." Marcus begged him to stay, the confrontation raw. The betrayal within came when a key ally switched sides, forcing Marcus to make a desperate ethical compromise to secure votes. The decision haunted him, but it tipped the scales. In the final boardroom vote, the empire fell into his hands. Victoria sat defeated, her face pale. "You won, but at what cost?" she asked. Marcus had no answer, the victory hollow amid the ruins of his personal life. The acquisition closed with fanfare, but inside Marcus the awakening began, the full weight of every decision, every sacrifice crashing down. In the aftermath, Marcus stood in Victoria's former office, the view of Manhattan now his. The empire was his, Phoenix Innovations rebranded under the Harrington name in a twist of irony. He had achieved what he vowed 7 years earlier, but the price was staggering. Andre had left months earlier, the relationship fractured beyond repair, though they remained in contact with guarded hope. Family ties were severed, old friends gone, the man he once was replaced by a colder, more calculated version. Marcus reflected on the journey, the firings, the rejections, the moral choices, the betrayals. He had won justice but lost pieces of his soul along the way. A final meeting with Victoria in her new modest role as consultant revealed her own regrets, her prejudice rooted in personal losses. Marcus offered her a path forward, a small mercy that surprised even him. As he walked out the building, the weight lifted slightly. The awakening was complete. Success did not heal the wounds, it only highlighted the costs. In the end, was Marcus right to pursue such ruthless revenge, or did it turn him into the monster he once despised?